ටවුන් එකේ විෂන් කෑකට ගියා නම් ඉවරයිනේ.
විෂන්කයා විශ්වාසනීය දැක්ම.
But I want to send a very clear message today to people smugglers both in Sri Lanka and across the region. Australia has just held a recent election and the government has been re-elected. And on that basis, our policy in relation to the protection and security of our borders has not and will not change. We've been very clear and consistent in our message over a long period of time that Australia is a very generous nation. We take a number of people through our refugee and humanitarian program each year. In fact, on a per capita basis, the most successful nation behind Canada in the world in terms of the numbers of people we bring in, but we will never bring in people by boat. People who come to Australia through our visa program, through our refugee and humanitarian program, come by plane. They make application through the High Commission or through our government and through the visa process, and those visas will be assessed on their merit, and we will decide who comes to our country in those circumstances. But we will not allow people to arrive in Australia by boat. And I know that people smugglers might be telling some of those who would seek to come to Australia that the situation has changed, but it hasn't. The people smugglers have been lying to you, and you must reject what they say. Regardless of how much money you hand over, regardless of what is promised, people will never arrive by boat in Australia. And we have a very tough border protection program and regime and policy in Australia, and that will continue under the government led by our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. And so my message is very clear to those people smugglers today that we are not going to allow you to get back into business. Ultimately, if you give money to a people smuggler, you will lose that money and you will be returned back to Sri Lanka very quickly. Obviously a number of vessels, that's been the case and elsewhere, but we have seen a lull recently, and we've just seen an uptick in activity in the last month or so, which has caused us concern, and obviously the two ventures in particular, the one that we've spoken about in relation to the 20 and the one in relation to 41 people on that vessel. But before that, we'd seen a lull in activity, and I think that's because of the strong stance that Australia has taken in our close work with Sri Lanka. Well, again, I think it was a demonstration of the very close relationship between our two peoples, and all of us were horrified by the dreadful attacks on Sri Lankans and those people who were affected, the 258 who tragically lost their lives and 500 people who were injured otherwise. And very quickly we offered support to the Sri Lankan government, worked very closely, particularly through the Australian Federal Police, but through our agencies otherwise, coordinated by the High Commissioner here in Sri Lanka. And I really do pay tribute to the work of the Australian Federal Police. So up to 20 officers in total were able to complement those already on the ground here in Colombo, and we provided assistance in terms of the investigation, in terms of forensic analysis, and providing support in a number of other ways to the Sri Lankan authorities. So that there is a very much embedded in the culture between our two organisations, Federal Police, our intelligence agencies, etc., with their counterparts here, the desire to help each other wherever possible. And those relationships are long-standing, and I think they've been enhanced in recent months, not only, as you point out, in terms of our relationship with Navy and with Coast Guard and others, but also out of the dreadful circumstances in April, and ability to provide support to bring those people to justice, to have a better explanation as to what happened, particularly with that ability and capacity on the forensic side that we can bring to the table, and as I say, a number of other ways in which we've been able to provide support to the Sri Lankans, and we're very proud to have been able to work with the Sri Lankan authorities.